Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Andy Caldwell representing CoLab. I first want to draw your attention to the fact that the Ag Tourism Coalition is a self-appointed group. This is not some official government body that's here weighing in on some policy dispute. They're a special interest group like CoLab, like CABO, like the Farm Bureau, et cetera, et cetera. And so the fact, I don't understand why they got 10 minutes and we got 3, but that's another point. What you have in front of you today is you have a ordinance. You have an ordinance and a permit process for temporary events. This isn't some helter-skelter process. It's an ordered process. It's a process written down. And you have definitions and conditions and discretion with respect to the issuance of these permits. First of all, there is a difference, and Commissioner White was right on. There's a difference between a temporary event and a permanent alteration of a piece of property. Temporary event is not a permanent event facility, and the definition of temporary event specifically speaks to, yes, you can use existing structures, but you cannot do permanent alterations for temporary events. And if you want to do temporary events, you got to get a permit. Of course, getting the permit will in some ways intervene with the application of this Land Use Policy 6. That's why you have a special permit category. I, for one, I've been doing this business for 20 years. I can't figure out what this hearing's about, because you have a permit process for temporary events, not permanent events. That's a whole different thing, which your staff told you. It's temporary by nature. There cannot be permanent alteration by definition. And if people don't want to see these things happen, they can appeal the permit or show up. This, to me, is once again a solution in search of a problem. And because ag lands vary, the uses vary, et cetera, we totally agree with your Planning and Development Department. You have to determine these on a case-by-case basis. So we would urge you to rule based on what the rules are. There's no question what these rules are. Temporary events, no permanent alteration, and you have an existing permit process, which up to date your staff has been honoring. So that is what we would ask you to forward to the Board of Supervisors. This is much ado about nothing. Make them pay for this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Jackie Crabb, followed by Jack Hutchinson, and Debbie Rice is on deck.
Good morning, Commissioners, and Jackie Crabb with the Farm Bureau. And we do realize that this issue will be going to the Board of Supervisors. We also realize that you will be making recommendations. It is those recommendations that we have concern with. If you are to make a recommendation that the interpretation of incidental is going to be now related, it's a huge change in how it's been handled, and it will impact what we've been doing, and it will also impact the outcome of the draft temporary event ordinance that's at the Board of Supervisors right now. Currently, we are allowed to have weddings, non-ag related events, on ag land. This would change that. The same of the asking that a minor use permit will have to be required for every single event is ludicrous. And then grading, to drop permanent and from the grading requirements and the construction requirements, that was a change that the Ag Tourism Coalition made when they were given the liberty to draft the ordinance back in July. What's interesting is the ag verification letter. That came about because of the discussions we were having with this ag tourism policy packet, and now it's kind of been pulled apart. You've got the temporary events ordinance now at the Board of Supervisors, but this letter, I'm not sure where this letter is. We've learned that the Ag Commissioner has been using this criteria that was set. We weren't aware of that until we had spoke with them recently. And it's understandable because they do need some sort of criteria, but this is supposed to go through the decision maker's process. And so where is that? Is that here now, or should it be tied with the temporary events ordinance? What we would like is for you to consider every request from the ATC. Does this have an outcome with the temporary events ordinance that is at the Board of Supervisors, and if it is, that you send that back, your recommendation back to the Board of Supervisors recognizing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crabb. Jack Hutchinson, followed by Debbie Deese, and Lisa Bedrogi is on deck.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good morning. My name is Jack Hutchinson, and I own a video production company in the city of San Luis Obispo. It has been said that there is a difference between the public interest and a special interest. In 2008, those who called for this hearing wrote 2 articles in which they publicly expressed their agenda to virtually eliminate weddings on ag zone land. Since then, they have done everything in their power to try to use you, the Planning Commission, to impose that agenda on the public. We need to keep that in mind. One of the arguments they make is that landowners can supplement their farming and ranching income by running dude ranches, harvest festivals, and farm stays instead of hosting weddings. First of all, this argument is based on the assumption that these other activities will generate the same amount of income as weddings. I doubt that's true, since landowners would already be running these type of operations instead of weddings. Second, even if they do draw as many tourists as into the county as weddings currently do, then the same group will have the same complaints about those events, and we'll find ourselves back where we are right now. The only way to satisfy the ATC would be to eliminate or drastically reduce the number of all tourists who visit ag zone land, a change that would hurt the landowners and the economy and would reduce county tax revenue. So this whole idea of limiting events to those that are directly related to agriculture is just a ploy, a smokescreen to distract us from the real issue. They want to drastically reduce the number of tourists on ag zone land, period. Regardless of why someone's visiting, the same number of visitors for the broccoli festival are going to do the same kind of damage as weddings. On July 30th, you voted unanimously to send this whole events issue back to the Board of Supervisors. Yet here we are only 6 weeks later, and these groups want you to go against the spirit of that vote, which was made in response to the public's clearly stated interest. The public is trying to get a message across. We want our elected officials on the board to weigh in before hearings like this take place. Please wait for the Board of Supervisors to give further direction in the public's interest, instead of giving the appearance of catering to the special interests of the few. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Debbie Dice, followed by Lisa Bedrogi, with Daniela Sapriel on deck.
Good morning. My name's Debbie Deese. I said it right this time. Again, you know, I kind of come from a rancher's background in the respect of ranchers that are trying to make a living with what goes on in this county. And you never see a lot of ranchers or farmers up in arms or showing up around here because usually they're busy working. And it's not easy to make ends meet around here. So when they can find something like this, that most farmers and ranchers are pretty good stewards of their property because that's how they make a living. And they can do it in a way that still protects the land and yet brings in a supplemental income that isn't harming things. You know, it's a shame to see what's going on go on. We've seen a lot of people that have come into this county with money that have bought farmland or ranch land or whatever, and they're, quote, farmers or organic farmers or whatever it has to be or what it is, yet they have enough money put aside that they don't have to make a living off of it, and then they're in here dictating what goes on or what should go on. And I think we need to step back and just look at what's happening. You know, it was decided to send it back to the Board of Supervisors. Take some time, step back, let's do this right. You know, let's really not try to push something through. It's good for a lot of people in the county, what we have going on here. It brings on a lot of revenue to this county, especially at the economic times and where things are right now. And I think it would really be a shame to do this halfway and not do it the right way to make sure it's good for everybody. You know, if there's a problem with an individual that's running events or whatever, deal with it. Don't do a blanket ordinance or whatever. Deal with it on an individual basis. Let's let this work for everybody in the county. And let's see if we can keep everybody employed. Thank you very much.